Hi guys, good morning. Welcome to another episode of DIY Porsche Guy. Thanks for joining to watch my video. I'm doing brakes and brake pads, brake rotors I should say, and brake pads. And changing them both out, and I've actually already done the front on the car because I wanted to learn and make sure I knew what I was doing. And I found that there's already some excellent videos out there for Boxster and Cayman brake jobs. So the question is, do you really need this video? And so what I'm gonna do is, instead of walking you through step by step everything, I'm going to put a link in the description to a couple of the excellent videos that are already out there for the Boxster and Cayman 987 generation. And then I'm going to talk about a few tips and tricks and little snags that I hit along the way, and I think it'll really help you to know some of the decisions I made there where these guys do things different ways. So I want to go over a few things along the way that will help you. And the first issue is, do you need to drain out brake fluid? Let me show you that. All right, so I've got the frunk popped open here. This is where your brake fluid reservoir is, and this is your brake fluid reservoir, and you will find that it is mostly full. And what happens is, when you push those calipers, the pistons in the calipers back, the brake fluid is pushed back into this reservoir. And a little bit is okay, but if you do a couple brakes, it really can put pressure on this cap and even overflow the reservoir tank. So in my opinion, you definitely want to take some fluid out of this. I would take as much as you can easily get with a turkey baster. And one thing that I would say is, this is not a precise instrument. When you take the fluid out of here, it will drip and leak, so protect the area with, I've got some paper towels here or some shop rags, whatever you got. And I also have a funnel that I'm gonna put on my bottle that I'm collecting the fluid, and I do it all right here over the reservoir. You can see it's kind of set up for spills. It's got this rim. The more you try to move it with the fluid in the turkey baster, the more likely you are to get brake fluid on your nice paint. You do not want to get brake fluid on your paint. That is corrosive stuff. So yeah, I do it all right over the tank. I'm gonna take it out with the turkey baster and put it in a bottle, and that is step one. I have now taken as much fluid as I can out of the reservoir, and it's in this nice little water bottle here that I have stored my brake fluid. I might need to fill that back up a little bit at the end. We'll just have to see how it goes. When I did the front brakes, I found out, because of the levels, going down, I should say coming back up when you pump the brakes, when you push the pistons back in, is when the levels get pushed back into this tank. And then when you pump the brakes back up, the level in the tank will go down a little bit. But after doing two corners of the brakes, the brake fluid reservoir was mostly pretty full, and the car did not say it was low on brake fluid at all. So yeah, get a lot of that fluid out of there, because the calipers will be going to a new position now with new fatter pads and different rotors. It'll kind of recalibrate to a new place, and you don't know exactly what your new brake level will be. So that's why I take as much out of there as possible. And then what I do is I leave the little cap, and then you want this cap back sealed on to keep the system sealed, but I leave the hood open, and that way I remember, okay, I need to check the brake fluid level and possibly fill it up before I go drive it once I'm done changing the brakes. Okay, I've got the wheel off, and there's my lovely painted brake caliper. And first special tip I wanted to give you about doing the brake job for your Porsche is, it's very helpful to have a long, narrow punch tool. And I picked up this one at Menards. It's, as you can see, it's about 8 inches long, and it stays nice and narrow. It's a 5mm punch, I believe, and the front is nice and narrow for a good 5 inches there, which gives you the full depth you need to punch through. See, what you need to do is punch this pin out with this tool and a hammer, and that will free up this clip right here. And once you remove that clip, then the brake pads are loose. And then this wire running around right here is the sensor wire. And that's one other thing I wanted to talk about. There's a little bit of, some people say don't replace the sensors if they didn't trip. I figure these sensors are an electronic sensor that's now 15 years old in this car. I'm gonna replace it. Plus my brake kit that I bought from Power Stop came with new sensors anyway. So I highly recommend Power Stop. It came with some new clips, some new pins, and a new, all four corners, new sensors, which is awesome. So I'm gonna take out this pin and this clip and this sensor, and then we'll be ready for the next step. All right, so I have taken the clip and the pin out, and the next step I need to do is you need to spread apart the brake pads that are in there now. And this is where you're pushing back that fluid back into the tank. And there's a number of different methods that can be used to spread these apart. I've seen people use some large channel pliers. My personal favorite method is just to get a normal brake pad spreader, and this, you know, can be bought at any auto parts store for less than 10 bucks. And you don't have full access to the way this tool is supposed to work, but we're gonna make it work anyway, and I will show you how. This sensor wire is kind of in the way, but I can just fit it right there. See how I've got the arc lined up there? And I'm going to push this between the two brake pads. One thing about these Porsche calipers is if you push on only one side, the other side will come out. So what you want to do, now we don't have the ideal angle, so I want to keep my hand pushed on this side while I unscrew this in order to apply force, or else it's just going to pop out of there. And there it goes. It is pushing it out, but I've got to put quite a bit of force on the outside of the spreader to keep that in there. Okay. And then once you get them spread a little ways, you can kind of see now they're loose. So now that they're loose, I could pull the sensor wire out, and I can also stick screwdrivers in there and wedge them out a little farther. And that's kind of what I prefer to do, is use screwdrivers, flathead, and make sure that these are pushed all the way out so you've got the maximum amount of clearance, because you're going to need all the clearance when you install the new brake pads, because they're going to be a lot thicker. Now that I've got the caliper unbolted from the assembly, and I use these nice little caliper hanging tool to attach it up there at the suspension so it won't fall and put any pressure on my brake lines, I highly recommend the caliper hangers. The next step will be to remove the rotors. And so there's these two little screws here that hold on your rotors to the hub. And these screws I just tried, and they are turning nice and easy back here on the back. So that is good. I don't have to worry about the problem I hit last time. So on my front rotors, these were seized up, maybe a little rust or brake dust was just packed in there. And when I tried to start unscrewing them, they started stripping and would not come out. That is where my impact screwdriver tool was a total lifesaver. If you don't have an impact screwdriver, this is like a necessity for working on older cars, because you will have frozen screws that will strip. And this thing is awesome. I can show you how you use it real quick. Hang on. Okay. So if you got your impact screwdriver and you've got some screws that are starting to strip, the best thing you can do, you gotta make sure this is set to turn left. You gotta, kind of like you do on a socket wrench. You set it to the left, and then put that in there. Just give it a few whacks, and you kind of got to recharge it. I'll show you. You hit it, and that turns the screw left a tiny bit, and then you want to kind of let the spring reset. Do it again, and this is just every time you whack it, it's turning the screw a tiny bit. So even on a strip screw, it's going to put the force where you need it, and you're going to be able to get the screws out of your rotors. And these screws are pretty small. I guess if they're in good shape, it doesn't hurt to use them again. I bought all new screws to replace, so I'll be replacing these screws to put the new rotors on. Now next step is, of course, the rotor is usually frozen to the hub. Oh, look at that, comes right off. Okay, I've never seen an older car release the rotor that easily. So good job, Porsche. I've got the old rotor off, no problems at all. And there's my hub assembly. So next I'm gonna do take some brake clean this off, make sure it's nice and smooth and perfect for the new rotor to attach to. I see there's a lot of gunk in my emergency brake, so I'm gonna clean that up too. And then we'll be ready to put the new rotors on. Okay, I just found another sticking point that was a little confusing to me, so I want to go over this with you so that you aren't confused like I was. So in the calipers, this is a base Boxster, you've got those pistons in there, and there is no plate with the extra weights on it in the base Boxster rear. Now in the front on the Boxster, it's got a plate with like little harmonic balancer weights, whatever, fancy things that go between the piston and the brake pad. For a second when I opened this up, I thought, dude, somebody lost the brake pad plate, what the heck? And then after doing a little digging around, I found out, okay, this is the base Boxster rear brakes. It does not have that balancer pad. It's only on the front. If you have a Boxster S or a Cayman S, you will have that balancer plate with the two weights that go inside of these pistons. You will have that on both front and back. Okay, I've got the pads put back together in the caliper here. Clip replaced, pin replaced, sensor wire replaced. The only tricky thing here that I want to mention is getting that rod back through both of your caliper sides and brake pads, and mainly that clip. There's a lot of spring pressure here on this metal clip. That's pretty tough to do. The way I found works best was I used my punch tool here, and I kind of threaded the needle and kind of held the clip down with pressure from the caliper hole, holding that clip down and kind of guiding the pin, you know, nose to nose with my punch tool back across as far as I could. And then I got to a point where I couldn't hold, you know, once you get to the middle, you can't hold that clip anymore. So the clip is going to put a lot of pressure on that pin, and it's still got a couple more holes to go through on the outside. So then what I did, I basically took a very kind of a small flathead screwdriver, and I went through the hole, and I kind of put it right on the edge of the tip of the pin, just to kind of give it a guide to put pressure on the screwdriver tip, and so it wasn't putting directly pressure on the clip, like if you just hammer it without any guide. And that way I was able to get it through the last two holes. Well, last hole I had to just take out the screwdriver at the end, and by then it's lined up well enough that you can just hammer it through. But yeah, that pin is really the trickiest part about putting the pads back together. Once you get it in, also you want to make sure that that hole is facing out, so you can put the little cotter pin here, the clip that holds the pin in place once it's in. So we are all put back together here. We got new pads, we've got sensor wire and new rotor. I guess I'm just gonna wipe down this rotor a little with some more brake clean, and then the wheel can go back on. And we are done. Thanks for watching, guys. This has been DIY Porsche Guy. Let me know if any of these tips were helpful. I know it wasn't a complete walkthrough of every step, but I thought this would be good for any of the, you know, debatable sticking points, for any of the parts that I struggled with while doing the install. Hope this helps you out. Have a good one.